Russia announced its ceasefires and the setting up of humanitarian corridors around the besieged cities of Mariupol and Volnovakha.
As the war in Ukraine continues, Moscow restricts access to Facebook and Twitter in retaliation for the West blocking Russian state media. The Winter Paralympics opening in Beijing was marked by the Ukrainian delegation staging a call for peace as Russia continues its invasion.
Across Ukraine, people are trying to flee Russian attacks. This stream of vehicles is headed away from Zaporizhia, where Russia seized Europe's biggest nuclear plant on Friday. Then on Saturday morning, Russia announced a ceasefire would start immediately around the besieged cities of Mariupol and Volnovakha, as well as the setting up of humanitarian corridors to allow civilians to flee. Today, March 5th, from 10 a.m. Moscow time, the Russian side declares a regime of silence and opens humanitarian corridors for the exit of civilians from Mariupol and Volnovakha. Humanitarian corridors and exit routes agreed with the Ukrainian side. Just hours later, Mariupol's mayor said the ceasefire wasn't being respected. Far away from the Black Sea and other cities such as Geneva in the north, the attacks continued relentlessly. My house burnt down completely. It flared up like a match. My 4 dogs burnt to death. We barely managed to escape alive, including a mother and a child. Everything was burning around us. We left with nothing. Also on Saturday, the Russian Defense Ministry released video from the Kiev region of its own military. Moscow describes its invasion of Ukraine as a special military operation, and Russians learn little of what's really happening. Their media is being heavily censored.
Since the bombing started in Kiev a week ago, many foreign embassies have withdrawn to the city of Lviv in western Ukraine. Day after day, they're organizing the evacuation from the capital of their citizens and their repatriation.
This group, Brazilian, they're going to the Polish border and then heading back home.
The ambassador to Brazil in Ukraine is supervising the evacuation. There's no time for comments.
Is everyone on board? Get in the car! Get in the car!
How many people are you taking away?
Around 16 people.
Like many of his peers, the ambassador will head the convoy to the border himself before coming back to Lviv. Diplomats and journalists have invested the city, considered until now as a safe haven. The question is for how long? Back in the hotel in which I've just arrived, we're warned of an airstrike alert. The staff asks everyone to go to the shelter. Like in all hotels in the city now, most of the customers here are either refugees, diplomats, members of international organizations, or journalists. The alert is short-lived.
So it didn't last very long, but the staff told me that there was another alarm yesterday and 6 the previous day, so nowhere seems to be safe anymore in Ukraine.
Meanwhile, humanitarian aid convoys are being sent from Lviv to the Ukrainian capital, more than ever bracing for further Russian attacks. Valerie Goria in Lviv for Euronews.
Before the opening ceremony at the Beijing Paralympics, Ukrainian athletes called for peace as Moscow continued its attack on Ukraine. Their appeal drew applause from other foreign participants. Some shed tears as they received hugs from competitors from other nations. The Ukrainian delegation said it had been overwhelmed with the outpouring of solidarity in Beijing. The team's top official declared earlier this week that it was a miracle that they even made it to the competition. Russia's invasion of Ukraine started shortly after the Winter Olympics wrapped up in Beijing this year. In response, the International Paralympic Committee announced that Russian and Belarusian athletes will no longer be able to compete at the Winter Paralympics after multiple teams threatened not to participate at the Games this year. If you're in Russia and you want to log into your Facebook account, you're likely to see this message. Moscow has completely blocked access to Facebook and Twitter in retaliation for the social media platforms placing restrictions on Russian state-owned media. Russia is broadening its efforts to control the spread of information on the invasion of Ukraine. On Friday, Russian lawmakers passed a bill imposing harsh jail terms and fines for publishing what they consider fake news.
The blocking of state media has encouraged a Russian response of blocking Western headquartered digital platforms, removing a key channel through which prominent Russians have been expressing their dissatisfaction for the war. So that takes away a key form of protest for them. But these blocks also restrict the availability of direct-to-public appeals like those of Zelensky's to the Russian people to try to erode their support for this invasion.
In response to these new laws, media outlets such as the BBC and CNN have announced that they will be temporarily suspending the work of their journalists in Russia. The Kremlin's invasion of Ukraine has sparked numerous anti-war protests inside of the country. More than 8,000 people have been detained since the invasion began on February 24th, according to the monitoring group OVD Info.
Give Peace a Chance van John Lennon en Yoko Ono.
Across Europe, 150 radio stations have simultaneously broadcast a message of hope and peace over the airwaves. Each station playing the John Lennon song Give Peace a Chance, including Ukrainian public radio, asked Russia to stop the invasion and end the war.
Give peace a chance. Paremos la guerra de Ucrania.
At 9:15 on Friday morning in a Europe once again anguished by war, the song recorded in 1969 for Lennon's group, the Plastic Ono Band, was all too relevant once again. The initiative emerged from the Berlin radio station RBB and was launched through the European Broadcasting Union from 56 countries. Give Peace a Chance was written by John Lennon specifically for the Vietnam War and has become an anthem of hope. Now it's once again a rallying cry against war. Over a week after Russia invaded Ukraine, a festival dedicated to human rights and cinema has opened in Geneva. The International Film Festival and Forum on Human Rights has been running for 20 years, in parallel with the UN Human Rights Council. And 2022 marks the return of the festival in person, after 2 years of pandemic.
We're expecting 250 guests for this edition, which will bring together a selection of fiction films, documentaries, high-level debates, and major meetings with personalities such as Chelsea Manning or Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Every year it is a difficult choice. Some of the themes that are dealt with by the festival are carried by great films that make us want to talk about a theme, and sometimes it is current events that make us look for great films. This year, Riti Pan and Nabil Ayouch are expected at the festival, as well as the Afghan filmmaker Sharban Sadat.
The point is that we need culture.
You know, I couldn't really think about tomorrow.
Well, I think this festival is so important.
And in view of the war in Ukraine, an exceptional debate has been scheduled.
War is raging, and we have decided to dedicate an evening to it, consisting of a debate with international personalities, which will take place on Monday the 7th of March at 8 p.m. We will have voices from Ukraine live, but also personalities who sit here in Geneva at the United Nations Human Rights Council. This year we are preparing the 20th edition of the festival, so an anniversary edition is important in extremely complex conditions with the recent news. But on the contrary, it strengthens our convictions.
Pinar Pahani's film Hit the Road will open the festival.